Welcome to the Cartoonist Kayfabe weekly shoot for the weekend of what?
June 28th.
My name's Ed Piskor.
I am Jim Rugg.
You just got back from ALA.
Yeah, man, 2 shows in 2 weeks. It's
That's right, that's rockstar stuff.
I am not used to that kind of travel schedule, but yeah, ALA, great. It was in Washington, D.C. in their convention center, which is huge. Totally different atmosphere than what we had at Heroes. You know, librarians. I was thinking about this on the drive over. Librarians are desperate to just like connect material with readers.
Yes.
You know, like find something that will hold these readers' interest or entice them to become readers or stay readers and stay interested. And it makes me think like, can comic shops learn something from that? You know, it's such an inviting, like passionate group. And I realize comic shops are a completely different business, run completely differently than libraries. But I do love that kind of like passion for the books and to connect those books with readers. So pretty good weekend. I my second ALA that I've gone to, I think I've talked about it before probably on this show, is how like it is a different atmosphere, it's a different group of people, and I like that. You know, it's book lovers, it's people that are into reading, and pretty fun. Kind of a battery charging weekend for me.
The convention center, was it kind of like you catch an escalator and go down into the pit of the convention center?
Yeah.
So imagine this, man. Imagine it's a National Book Festival and you just got done with a big talk and there's a lot of people there. And it's time for your ushers, who happen to always be Librarians of Congress. That was a new subscriber. It's the Librarians of Congress who like are kind of your ushers, like to and fro. And going down into the pit, and then you see the fabric curtain backdrops with names, and then you see these lines just waiting for their authors to show up, man. And then you see one super giant long line here. You see a little void in the middle. Of course, that's Eddie P's thing. And right to the right is another giant one. And they wedge me right in between like Newt Gingrich and Congressman John Lewis. To just what, humble me? Fuck you guys, man.
There were some long lines. They must have planned them well because they were mostly lined up around the outside perimeter whenever there were big long line queues. So I didn't have that problem. I was in Artist Alley. I did do signings at Little Brown and Image. Mm-hmm. So shout outs to both staffs at those companies. They went very well. We had books, they had books on hand for me to sign for, I guess, mostly librarians. And both signings went well. Busy the whole time there. Great weekend, man,
I like what you said about the librarians and their connection with books and how they hope to connect readers and all that. And I think good retailers probably have some element of that. I implore the Kayfabers to call out their favorite comic shop owners, put some stuff in the comments. We need to keep these shops going. It's become a mission of mine to like do whatever I can to try to promote the shops around the country, around the world, who are doing good business.
I can't remember if it was you, Ed, that mentioned it, but like video stores were such a big part of my life as a kid, and like they're gone. Yeah. And I think about that with comic shops, and I'm with you, man. Whatever we can do to keep comic shops around forever, like let's do it. And thinking in these same terms, I saw a post. Menachem from Escape Pod Comics is a shop that I did a signing at and kind of fell in love with the shop. And we have good shops around here too. Like we have some really good retailers.
Let's call out some of ours.
Phantom of the Attic.
Phantom of the Attic.
In Monroeville and Oakland. Both staffed well with people who are happy to recommend. I've been there when I've seen them sort of interacting with people and recommending books. Obviously, Copacetic Comics.
We got to get a shoot interview with Bill Boychelle, the proprietor of Copacetic Comics.
But I saw a post that Menachem had posted, a customer that lived on the other side of the country, basically gave him like, this is what I want to spend, 2 adults, 2 kids, put together a care package. And, and he posted video of what he put in there. And it's great. It's really, it's one of those things that these comic shop retailers are uniquely suited for this kind of thing. They're seeing the majority of this product, at least what's coming through their stores. They're able to, potentially connect that to people that aren't as familiar with all this stuff. You walk into a comic shop, it can be overwhelming for me, and all I do is think about comics. But if you're a random person, if you're there to buy a gift for a kid, your nephew or niece or spouse or whoever, where do you start? So these retailers that are, leveraging that information and knowledge to help connect a potential customer to, hey, here's a book that would be perfect for that person. What are they interested in? Who are they?
Invaluable.
Yeah,
Creating
amazing.
new readers.
So yeah, please, people that are watching this, let us know what your local shops are that are good shops. And the other thing that happens after I do these shows is you meet a lot of shops, and it makes me want to go check them out. I follow tons of shops on social media, and some of them post videos and things. You get to see little snippets of their store, and it makes me want to go and visit some of these. So there may be a tour in the near future. I mean, look, I have 2 books coming out in the next 6 months, and I need to promote them. So there may be some, try to hit a couple of these shops I've never been to before.
It basically is travel season for cartoonists at this point. Lots of conventions going on, and we have a schedule mounting up more and more as the weeks go by. And some of those places we're driving to, which means take a little hour detour. What's an hour when it's a 5-hour drive or some shit?
Yeah, absolutely. And now that we have the channel, maybe get some video of some of these places, some of these stores, a little record.
So we're recording this on a Thursday. Just yesterday, the final issue of XMen Grand Design came out, man, to pretty good reception. Last week I was very nervous. The last episode of Game of Thrones is out there, and that Venom, that customer chatter Venom was in the ether. So I was just waiting for some of that shrapnel to come my way. It hasn't come my way in a noticeable way at this point. That said, I usually get most of my feedback around the weekend. It seems that people hit the comic shops on a Wednesday, work their week, the rest of the week. When that business week ends, they're chilling out on a Saturday. That's when I get the personal feedback about what people think about the comic, man. But, over 1,000 days straight, 7 days a week in a row, working on this baby. We saw the stacks of our books when we completed the shit about 2 months ago, which is interesting, right? It's like I put pencil to paper on the last page maybe less than 2 months ago, and it's here now. That's kind of a wild turnaround, certainly from the work I've done with Fantagraphics, where it's like it goes off to press in China and just go on vacation, go live your life for about 3 or 4 months, and then the books will show up eventually.
It is funny how much lead time there is with differences between publishers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's out. I'm happy with it. It's really fun to have gotten that out of my system. The trade paperback, if people are curious, is going to come out in August, and I put the final touches on that. That's off to press. One of the frequently asked questions that I receive from people in comments and messages and emails is, are they going to do a compilation book with the complete X-Men Grand Design? And I have no new information on that. My thoughts are it would be stupid as fuck not to.
Right.
But I'm not making a decision.
Yeah. I can tell a stupid story about Marvel.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
When we were in Heroes on the elevator, there was a guy with a World War Hulk omnibus. Giant. It's this thick. Huge names on the spine of the writer. I think it was Greg Pak and John Romita Jr. The only names on the spine of, 1,000 pages of comics or so. Cover not drawn by John Romita Jr. Someone explain that to me. Explain that in the comments. Why? What scenario that would ever make sense? And by the way, it's not a painted cover or something where you go,
it's not Brian Bolland?
No, it's not Brian Bolland, and it's not a painted cover. It's just another standard, pen and ink kind of cover with computer coloring. Could have been anybody. Why? What is that? Use one of the Hulk covers.
Yeah, John Romita Jr.'s dope.
Very strange. Are you buying this book and being like, man, I love the Hulk. It's too bad this one guy drew all 1,000 pages of this $150 book I'm buying.
But this cover is so enticing.
Yeah, I can't.
I'll drop that
$100.
Very I won't buy the poster.
Very weird.
I have another silly Marvel story from the Heroes Con that also has to do with the elevator. We were coming back from wherever we were coming back. You were talking to the wife or something. Chris and I hopped in the elevator. In comes Bill Sienkiewicz. We did the panel the day before with Bill, which will be on the channel soonish. And I asked him, Bill, who do I have to talk to get Elektra Assassin in print? Set him off. Not on me. He's like, I know, it would be a perennial. It might not be a home run, but it's at least a double. And doubles win ball games. And he went on this whole rap about it. And one of the things that I discovered is one of the differences between Marvel and DC when it comes to the royalty / incentives thing is he said that a lot of Marvel cats have to like audit Marvel.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, okay, man, I will be doing that. I'm not gonna like leave $1 on the table. So Marvel, man, we've been doing good business so far. Like, keep them checks coming, man. And if it gets a little too long, I'm gonna have to get one of those blood in the mouth New York dudes.
It would be frustrating if you're Sienkiewicz. You do this great comic at Marvel, out of print most of the time, and you look over and it's like David Mazzucchelli, Batman Year One in print forever, and 100 different editions. You know, Dark Knight Returns, same thing, same era, Frank Miller, and it's like, but my book rarely in print.
And that, if you tasked yourself with trying to figure out like, well, what would the Marvel Perennials be? I'll put you on the spot. Like what would they be? Like, that's very high on my list. I guess Born Again, but that last issue with where they have to like wedge in the Avengers and all that, that's a little bit like...
Yeah, I don't know. When I think of Marvel iconic runs, a lot of them are very long runs, like Simonson Thor and, you know, John Byrne Fantastic Four or X-Men, you know, virtually forever. Like, you think Dark Phoenix Saga, and I mean, you know more than me, but like, you think Dark Phoenix Saga is like this huge piece, but I don't know that you would just have that. You know, you would have a run.
Yeah, wouldn't make sense.
You know, same with like Miller Daredevils. Like, there are these really iconic runs, but they don't really fit themselves well in like, it's, you know, it's a $10 or $15 trade paperback of 6 issues.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is there's like, when it comes to the miniseries, there's very few like really, really tight miniseries, but that is probably the top.
Yeah, more than almost any of them, that one seems like it should be in print. It's just graphically unique. It's from a very rich moment in comics history.
And I would say it's far more than a double. I think Sienkiewicz was being humble.
Yeah, it's very. I don't think anybody would argue that it's a double or better. So, you know, it's a pretty safe stance to take on it. But bizarre that thing's not out in just a myriad of great versions.
Yeah. So there it is. Thank you for supporting the project.
bit of an aside. Ed, I had a question. So, you know, you've had lots of cool covers with these, and I really like this Bishop cover. Mm-hmm. And one thing I was wondering, like the placement of things like the corner box distortion, even the barcode, the Marvel logo, did you do that, or was that up to them?
I did everything but the variant thing, the Marvel, and the barcode. But I gave the placement for this because I was just like, I felt like I had to instruct them a little bit because of some things I've seen before. And you know, I should have instructed them with this too, because like, why would you have it exactly parallel with the X-Men? You should tilt that up a little bit. This one is good. That one's fine or whatever. But yeah, I just distorted all the stuff, man. Used one of the things that readers like a lot is like whenever I scan in like a wood grain and use that as like magneto energy. And what I've been doing for many years, maybe we'll show the box off at some point, but I've been hoarding and amassing Zipatones and Letraset press-on type off of eBay for a while now. And sometimes I guess the sellers will Google the name and send me lots extra, which is super cool. And I received like wood grain Zipatones and would just imagine like in the real world where this was being used in the 80s or before, what would a wood grain Zipatone of that size before? Like, what is the purpose of that? Have no clue, but I found an excellent use. And this one, is this called concentric circles? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Like, you know, the concentric circle zip. You know, if you're doing some kind of like Steranko pastiche or some shit, it lends well to time travel.
It's wonderful. I love this pattern, and somebody at Heroes gave me half a dozen sheets of Screentone, Letraset Screentone, and it included one with circles like that. Don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but one plan I have is to scan all of those and put them somewhere where other people can just download them and use them, you know, in Photoshop or whatever, because apparently there is some like online trading of these things.
That's super
and
charitable.
Somebody brought it to my attention, and why not? Because I'm going to cut it up. You know, if I have a scan of it, I can use it again too in the future. So I'll mention whenever that's up and where it's at, probably in the next week or two.
I do the same thing, but I don't share. It's the hip hop part of my brain where it's like, this is my sample.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to put a different record label on my thing, man. So when you hear the tune and you want that record, like, you got to just dig. You know, I've been digging for this shit for better than a decade.
I might have a different view if I were digging, but when somebody gives it to me, it's kind of like, all right, man, let me pass this on.
That makes sense.
Share it around. And also, the person that told me about posting them or scanning them and trading is like, I'll give you some too. So, I'm interested to see like what other patterns are out there. That wood grain could have been for like architecture firms. Like this stuff isn't just limited to comics.
No, of course.
So I've seen some of those kinds of things where patterns are used for, in the old days whenever draftsmen were creating on paper.
We should show off a box of that stuff at some point. There's so many odd wallpaper type. In fact, I have the Zipatone. One of the things that I included in the background, it's so incidental, nobody would notice unless they're looking with like a hawk's eye. But the Zipatone that Terry Austin would use over Byrne whenever they would be inside the X Mansion and you would see wallpaper. Like, I have that Zipatone.
That's pretty cool.
And I used it in the comic.
That's amazing.
That's something that like nobody
Wow,
noticed
that's
yet.
real digging.
But I know, like, this shit is thorough.
That's very, very amazing. You know what I was thinking is seeing these up here, maybe next week, arrange all the covers, because I know, like this motif runs through them, and that could be a really cool seeing them all together.
Yeah.
But I would love to do a screen tone piece like that, and maybe we can look at the Charlton cartoonist, Enrique Nieto. I'm a big fan of, and he's kind of a little bit lost to history, but he would use all kinds of screen tones, and he was one of the first guys I can think of that was really like amazing patterns. He must have been getting them from Japan, I guess. I think he was Filipino, but it was patterns that I wasn't seeing anywhere else. And I mean, the American stuff I've seen.
Check out my box, man. Like, as soon as you brought up his name, it's like, oh yeah, I have some Nieto screen tones that either Elektra Tone put out or Zip. So much stuff in the pipeline.
We could also maybe pull out some original art that has stuff like that on it too. I know that we have some pages between us of like cartoonists that have used screen tone. You see it in artist editions too for anybody at home that's like, what are they talking about with screen tone? It's you'll see it in artist editions and it'll yellow because of the adhesive and stuff over time and the acid and the adhesive.
Yeah, I asked Dan Clowes. I was in Paris and he had a gallery exhibition and 8-ball pages full of zip, pristine. And those pages are older than pages of material that I put together where I used screen tone. And I was like, dude, do you use some kind of dehumidified archival humidor, like some weird contraption? And he said that Zipatone screen tone is more archival than Letratone and all that stuff. That's all well and good, but I used Zipatone and it yellowed majorly. So there must have been, changes in production of those screen tones where like maybe at a certain era they're more archival than when they were on their last legs. Because I'm sure I got the last legs Zipatone. I'm far younger than the guy. I guess there's an era of Zip that it still looks totally perfect and his pages have benefited from it.
That's wild. That's something that's unfamiliar to me. And as far as real Zipatone goes, I don't know if I've ever used real Zipatone.
Oh, it's butter.
I may steal some of that whenever you're showing it off. Don't turn your back.
Once again, I do all the, I scan the stuff myself, but the shit that I cut up is the deleter nonsense that is like barely adheres, and the Letratone stuff that adheres far too much. You gotta like get the oils from your finger. That's probably what makes it turn yellow, is like you have to like get the adhesion to chill out a little bit before you like post it down. But the zips, like I just stare at them. I just like pet them. Because I just can't imagine using them. Like when you cut through that thing, like you feel the blade kind of like go in, and it's like this slow thing, and then when it peels, there's no danger of you like get like cutting it in half when you peel it off and like not getting the exact shape you want. Like it's solid. It's
going to be like our ASMR video. Peeling off little pieces of potato.
It was the standard for a reason, man. Should we talk a little about our fair screenwriting course that we just came back from?
Yes. Yeah, I'm eager to talk about that.
Yeah, I think what happens is you go to this class, we're workshopping ideas. You come in with an idea, you try to flesh it out, you present it to this woman, Emily Thomas, who has stripes. What was the show called? Longmire? Yeah, Longmire was showrunner for 6 years, 6 seasons. Whip smart, totally knows the ropes, and is very constructive and unapologetic. Just like, boom. She calls you on your bullshit. Anything you think you're gonna like sneak by a reader, she is there far in advance, waiting to like call you out.
Yeah, and I'm sure holds herself accountable. Like she had the great story about, you wake up in the middle of the night, everybody's done this, with a great idea, sounds good at 4 a.m. When you're saying it out loud the next day to whoever, that's whenever it doesn't sound as good. And that's always the litmus test. Like, I always think that's the thing to do to work a story is like say it out loud to somebody, because it forces you, the parts that you gloss over in your brain whenever it's just you, whenever you're saying it out loud, like there's nowhere to hide. It's very clear what isn't working. It's been a fantastic class. There's 6 of us in class. It's a pretty good number. I think it'd be tough if it were too many more people than that.
Probably impossible.
And I like everybody's just coming from very, very different directions with it, which makes for an interesting conversation. I teach an online course, and the difference is you do a lot of one-on-one, where we're sitting in a room together, so like notes to somebody else, I'm pulling, I'm making notes for my own application, even though it's about somebody else's story.
We don't have to get into any like specifics on the stories that we're telling, but when she was commenting on your stuff and coming from a very personal perspective, I saw you writing furiously, and I would have yelled at you if you didn't, because it was something that the consensus of all women there were like, oh yeah, and I'm sure you never thought about that, man. So it's just going to make the material so much more rich.
She made one statement. She's done this both classes. We've had 2 classes now, and both times I feel like she has said like one sentence where it's like, that's what I paid for. Thank you. I'm good. Everything else is just gravy. And that's the same deal. Like she basically fleshed out one of my major characters in one sentence, and it was like, yes. Incredible. It's pretty cool. We have 2 weeks now between classes due to the 4th of July, and it's like I just plan to do a lot.
I can't wait to see, because you came in with a germ of an idea, and I just watching this thing unfold is really a pleasure to behold. And I was far deep into my fuck it draft, as we said last week, and I finished my fuck it draft days before the class. Whenever we presented the material, we had to write it like a story concept that was fairly detailed. Some people was far more detailed than others. I included my comic, like for the like what would be the first issue if I choose to go that route. When it was my turn for the chopping block, the sort of germ of like what's going to happen is there, and I could look at it, but it's going to be far different than what I have right now. Whenever it's presented to the actual readers, it's going to benefit from that so much. I don't think that I will be drawing another draft completely, but I'll do it sort of as I go, rather than like this whole thing. It proved very valuable to just like see this thing, because when you're being honest with yourself, you see the holes. If you have any fucking taste, you should be able to be objective enough to like look at this stuff and see the holes. And it is a screenwriting course that we are taking, but what this class is to me is soliciting editors. I've never had a substantive, or however you say that word, editor that has real honest feedback beyond the comma doesn't go there, the apostrophe doesn't go there. And for your money's worth, I probably shouldn't even say this on the thing, because like she might bump up her price and add a 0 at the end of the course thing. But this is the best value you could get for somebody with so much experience as time. And I'm taking it fucking so seriously, man. Serious as a heart attack.
I'm with you 100%, 100%. And it's fun. She's talked about making concessions to us as like, I'm not sure how comics work exactly. So, you can kind of give me some examples or whatever. And it's like, no, like we're here for what you know how to do. I'll worry about adapting it to the comic part. But it's interesting, like from the editorial part, because I thought of that too. Like this may be somebody to keep in touch with, to work with as like a freelance editor or something, because of her knowledge of just storytelling and structure and characters. Like all of that stuff is applicable. You know, I can work out the parts of like this is going to work visually or this won't, but all the like foundational storytelling components, man, it's impressive. And man, you're right about the rate, because it really is like one-on-one coaching sessions.
Got the money's worth already.
It's good. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, we had the famous dinner at Baltimore Comic-Con with the great Howard Chaykin when he looked both of us in the eye and said, "You boys need editors."
having read none of our work.
Right.
Very true, though. I mean, it was the note we pulled from that.
And he gave me contact info for his guy. But with the benefits I've been getting from this class so far, and proof is in the pudding. Like I don't want to puff anybody up, because I actually got a lot of stuff from you at the class as well. But I don't want to promote you guys too heavily if my book turns out to be dog shit.
Totally. One of the things with your story that I'm finding interesting, and you're going to have to deal with, we'll probably talk about on the show at some point, is like, it's a very, very rich idea. Mm-hmm. It's a world that you're sort of constructing there, and ultimately you're going to make a bunch of choices that go from world size to, 3 issues worth or 4 issues worth, but a very, very tiny piece of what is a very big world. Like these decisions are going to fall on us. Like my book will be good or bad based on me. It's awesome to work with somebody that can give insight and reflect on it. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, you sign your name on it, it's your choices. So don't worry if things don't work out. I don't think I'm going to catch any flack from that. But it is interesting, like, just hearing people, like, asking you questions. It's like, oh, yeah, you could just focus on this element or this character. It's fun, man. It's a different way to work. I think about, like, Dan Clowes is a guy I've read lots of interviews about, and he's talked about each story being... like his process being different for each story. And I feel like that's what this is. This is just a different process than I've done in the past.
Because I spent 2 months working on this thing that I will not... It's been added to the compost heap, and it's rotting, and hopefully, some good stuff emerges from it. But nobody's going to see this stuff. Maybe it'll be published in the back of the trade paperback or some bullshit, like, down the road. My thing was torn to pieces, as it should have been. Last night, when it was all said and done, time to go to sleep, eventually when the head hit the pillow, the mind would just not relax, and I'm solving storytelling things in my dreams. It's a comic, like, it's illustrations that I'm working on, but the dreams are real life. Like, it's bodies and it's people. So I'm essentially having nightmares all night, waking up with feelings of desperation sometimes. It's definite anxiety all around my little story here, man. Like, this is like what I put into the shit that, like, people just don't talk about. Anxiety all night, nightmares all night. I wake up and I'm up for 2 hours just thinking, like, oh, this is so hopeless. This is going to be a pile of junk. Then something connects. I write it down on my little notebook that I keep right next to the bed. Go back to sleep. More dreams of brutality, disgusting nonsense. Maybe a piece of it can be used. But it's been... we're recording later in the afternoon than we have in the past. And there was a Kayfabe Weekly a couple of weeks back where I had to call you, because I had to call you up and just say, like, Jim, I haven't been to sleep all night. I can't be in front of a camera. I'm going to stutter far more than I do. I'm going to just be a piece of crap. If we weren't recording this late in the afternoon, it would have been the same thing, because I've been giving myself so much in anxiety since, like, leaving the class. And it's not necessarily a negative anxiety. It's a productive feeling. Like, I came up with some solutions, but the road to get there requires some sleeplessness, some tossing and turning, and this is why you'll never see me outside of the house before 5 p.m. if I'm not at some fucking comic convention or some stuff.
Yeah. Did you have this kind of anxiety with X-Men? Like, in the early stages, was it like, how am I going to shape this?
There were small pieces where I would spend a lot of energy, but what this new project is, it's me without a safety net. The Hip Hop Family Tree comic, it was on rails. I had the benefits of actual history that I had to be accountable to. And it was a world building exercise. With X-Men Grand Design, you don't have to worry about Wolverine calling you up, threatening to sue you because you took some liberties.
Right.
But there's a general concept that you need to get across. You can only bend the reader so far before they're like, why did this happen here? So it's a little less on rails. It's a world building exercise, but you still have to be true to the spirit. I like world building. Those were two, my master's and my doctorate were these projects. But now I'm without a tether, and I have to make a lot of decisions because I have this world that I want to create. And it's just, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself. Simple as that.
Yeah, one thing I struggle with in this stage is it's harder to see the work. I don't feel as productive. I might be totally productive.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a lot that goes on, as you say, a lot of decisions that you make in this front, at this stage, and you don't see those as much. Like once I get to the drawing part, it's really easy to see that progress. It's like I did a page today.
Yeah.
I have files of these pages. You can count down. You know how many pages you're dealing with. You may have deadlines. There's all these markers that are like I'm getting stuff done.
Right.
Like that page is done. This page is done. And at this stage, it's kind of like you're still shaping it. And who knows? Maybe it turns into something else or, something other format than what you think. Maybe it's 4 issues instead of 3. Like there are all these things, and I struggle with that part a lot. It's very frustrating because it requires a different kind of discipline than sitting down at the drawing table. Sometimes you're doing other things to generate ideas, and you have to just. I'm going for a run. I'm going for a hike. Like there are these activities that are germane to sort of idea generation, but it's not like sitting down and doing hard work that's measurable and that you can see the results of, and that's a different challenge.
It's a tough one, and I'm good right now, but I don't think it's a secret. Like I was raised, my folks are broke, and making a living is important, and I don't ever want to be in a situation where I was when I was a kid. So I finished the gig, and I have books that sell, and they generate something. But I'm not ever going to rely on that as like it's a stock market dividend or some crap like that. I always got to keep on that hustle, and that's the cloth I'm cut from.
Well,
so there's this part where it's like the story thing, and you're bringing in nothing. And once again, no problem right now, but you don't want 2 months to become 5 months, to become 6 months, and to become Al Columbia,
Yeah, I was going to say, that we can seg a little bit to the Tim Vigil interview
Yes.
that we posted recently, and he talks about his ups and downs in this business, long periods of time between issues, resting sort of in a system that there are elements that aren't in your control, distributors going out of business and things like this that really can create financial hardships in a hurry.
Yeah.
And things can change very quickly. What's working in 1993 may have no chance at all in 2003. So, yeah, I think anybody that freelances can relate to what you're describing there.
Yeah, and you don't cry for me, man. Like I'm doing just fine, but I'm just explaining the process.
Yes. You do have to you have to have that focus. You have to, because those months do go by. Time goes fast. Like it's really easy to do nothing.
We have these 2 weeks in between, and what we're tasked with to present next time we all reconvene, is pretty simple. Like no big deal. So I have to make sure I have the bullet points, like rearrange the order of all of my events into a more pleasing structure that excites, that builds anticipation, that might even have a little confusion added into the mix bed so that things pay off a little bit later. I have confidence in my readers that they'll be along for the ride.
That was a note that I made last night, is that idea of like, don't give any of this information until you have to. Have your viewers almost confused, and it's pretty interesting. It's I always think like my two rules are don't be boring and don't be confusing, unless you're doing a mystery or something where confusion's kind of the goal. But it's kind of interesting, that idea of like, don't give any of that information out until you have to, until it's necessary. Kind of cool.
It's that Hubert School Marvel DC programming that I've had to like try to deprogram myself from over the past many years, man. And the rule of thumb with old Marvel editorial, old DC editorial way back in the day was you got to treat your reader like they're dumb.
This is a legacy of comics being a children's medium whenever we started reading it. If you're writing for 7-year-olds, it's very different than if you're writing for 37-year-olds.
I get what you're saying, but the comics are far more insulting to the 6-year-old. Like, I was a 6-year-old reading that stuff. I was insulted by it. But I would read a Maurice Sendak picture book as a boy. I would read picture books. What are they doing that's not insulting my intelligence that the comic people aren't? Because that was what I was grasping with as a boy. Like, okay, like, I get that this person's name is Logan. Like, do we have to mention it 3 panels a page, like 22 pages an issue, or just keep beating things? Like, the picture book people, they have that respect to their readership, and it's called picture books in their world. Like, if you talk to a picture book illustrator, author, and you call it a children's book, they'll look at you cross-eyed, man.
We should say, we have a picture book episode, and maybe we'll do some more, but if you're interested in this topic, we do have more material on it.
And we just posted the storyboards video, show and tell video band, where we had a gang of storyboard books from people who had careers in comics and storyboards, going from Katsuhiro Otomo to Steranko to Steve Scroce. Oh, speaking of the pronunciation, gang, we might be able to replicate this right here. Like let's see, because I had a favorite moment last night. Well, damn, we can't say it because it would be giving up your idea. Damn. I don't know, Jim. I think that kind of wraps it up. We have some other video to record today, man, so we should probably get back to business.
Sounds good, Ed.
Kayfabers, your marching orders. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that bell icon to let you know whenever we have new videos available.
And continue word of mouth. Keep sharing. We are right on the cusp. It might be happening right now of 8,000 subscribers. Man, it's great to see a new 1,000 roll over. So keep sharing it. If you're enjoying this, if you're watching it at this point, I assume you're on board for the long haul. So share with a friend. And if not, just subscribe on their device whenever they're not paying attention.
You could support us by grabbing books at the links below. Hit our spread shop. We got new t-shirts available. Let's get the heck out of here, Jim. Give them the marching orders and we'll be out.
Read more comics.